Hey, so we're back with another video today. So just a little backstory on today's meal that I prepared for myself. I went out to eat to this restaurant, and this restaurant is what you would call fine dining. So with that being said, I paid, good little price for my meal, and it was so good. It was so delicious. I went twice. I went once last year in 2022, and I just recently went again this year in August, and I got the same exact thing both times, and it was delicious each time. I thought about it back in 2022, and when I went back again, I was like, I'm getting the same thing, and it was just as great as the time before, if not better. So I have been thinking about it, but I don't just go fine dining all the time. I like to go to restaurants for fine dining, but I just don't go like that, just like, because they have a nice meal ticket, price to their meal. So I'm like, I was sitting at home, I'm like, I would love to get what I had at the restaurant. So I'm like, okay, the price I paid for my meal, I probably could get that 3 times. I was to buy it myself at the grocery store and do it myself. So that's what I did today. They had salmon. Only difference is my salmon was cooked, grilled, lightly seasoning, or I don't know if I said lightly seasoned or no seasoning. I'm not sure. So the only difference is today I added a sauce to mine because I'm cooking at home and I know my preference of what I can and cannot have. I didn't trust a restaurant, to do those things for me. So that's the only difference in the assignment, that I put a sauce to mine and the sauce wasn't on mine at the restaurant. The yams was pureed. I never thought about pureeing yams. When you think of candy yams or sweet potatoes, you're thinking about Thanksgiving, Christmas, how mama cook them, they're circles, some of them cut up like that. You don't think about it being pureed. So I was like, okay, and it was so good, y'all. They had so much taste to them. It was just like delicious. And then also Brussels sprouts. I became a big fan of Brussels sprouts since going through my Gerd, so I have it often. So it was charred though at the restaurant. They charred them, overcooked them, burnt them, whatever you want to call it. So I'm like, okay, because normally I would just boil my Brussels sprouts, season them, probably even cook them with other vegetables in a pot, just, like I mentioned before, just to get out the nutrients. So I basically mimic what I got at the restaurant. So that's what today's meal is. I'm showing pictures on either side of me. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it at, where it is. Just to show you, how I looked at the restaurant, and then you're going to see what I did at home today when I prepared it for myself. So yeah. I'm going to start by seasoning my salmon. I use herbs to season my salmon. You can use your herbs of choice. You have oregano, you have rosemary that goes really good with salmon. But I have a sauce that I'm going to add to my salmon, so I'm going to let that be mostly my flavor for my salmon. But of course, I'm going to add my honey for the glaze on top. As I mentioned plenty of times before, I use honey for pretty much all of my meat, just because it's my flavor, because most of my food is fairly bland sometimes, just to give the extra kick. So this is the sauce that I'm going to be using. It's by this restaurant here named Rendezvous. It's a glazed honey sauce. I'm going to add turmeric to it just to cut down for any heartburn or aches and pains that I may feel from a kickback of the sauce. I've had this sauce before. I didn't have much of a reaction to it, but I always use turmeric or either ginger just for that purpose. But I'm going to use turmeric. I'm going to mix it really well, and I'm going to coat my salmon with this sauce. We have our Brussels sprouts. I'm going to add this no salt alternative for seasoning. I know I don't really use salt, but I have this no salt alternative that I use for my family meals, and I'm going to add it just because salt brings an extra kick out of food. So I just want this extra kick, since I'm not going to add much seasoning to the Brussels sprouts, and I want them to be charred like they was at the restaurant. So just to give that crunchy, burnt, charred taste, I'm going to stick them in the air fryer. But first I'm going to cut them up in half. I'm going to cut them in half, and I'm going to re-season them with the salt. And I also added turmeric because I was like, should I add turmeric just in case? Because I have added salt, and I've never actually used this type of salt, even though it says no salt alternative. I have never used it for my food, so I just dashed a little turmeric on there just in case. And I'm going to get them all cut in half, and I'm going to stick them in the air fryer. I'm going to stick them in the air fryer for that charred taste and look of them that was at the restaurant. I'm sorry. So I'm going to stick them in the air fryer. I don't really know how many minutes that I kept them in there. I just kept them in there until I felt like they was charred enough. So I found these sweet potato yam patties. Just to not have a whole potato that I have to peel and cut. 8 to a pack. I got 4. I'm going to mash them. These are much better mashed, I'm sure, with a mashing utensil. I didn't have one. I misplaced mine somehow. So I'm using a spoon. So it took a little bit longer. So I'm going to mash them all up. I'm going to get them to where they are the puree like they was at the restaurant. So I'm going to mash them. I'm going to season them. I noticed that I didn't film me seasoning it with all of the seasonings, but I added cinnamon, nutmeg, and also ginger to the sweet potatoes or the yams, and I'm going to mix it very well, and I'm going to stick those in a pot. You know, salmon doesn't take long to cook, so you want to keep an eye on it, but here it is cooking with the sauce. Once I got my Brussels sprouts out of the air fryer, I added to the leftover sauce in the pan, and I'm going to roll it around in it just to get the flavor. So here is the meal all done. It looks delicious, and it was. Adding the sauce to the salmon and also the Brussels sprouts was an excellent choice that I made. It was so good. The taste, the texture, everything was wonderful. See y'all next video.